generations to come.
And welcome to another edition of the TDN Writers Room. My name is Bill Finley. I'm a correspondent for the Thoroughbred Daily News, Bookham Dano's biggest fan, and I also do a horse racing radio show every Saturday on SiriusXM with the legendary Dave Johnson.
And you got to be proud of Bookham Dano. He ran a really good race in defeat the other day. We'll talk about that one. I'm Randy Moss with NBC Sports. Just me and you, Bill. Zoe's, yes. I guess, celebrating a milestone of some kind.
Zoe is celebrating her birthday, so we gave her the day off, and she'll be back next week. And her age, not going there.
It's a top secret. Somewhere between 29 and 79. Is that what we came up with?
That would just about cover it. Yes,
okay. All right. So, she should be okay with that.
Anyways, so Randy, so rarely do these races live up to the hype. I mean, you looked at the Travers coming in, and it looked like it was going to be a fantastic race. I mean, you had almost all the major 3-year-old males who are healthy and ready to go. Seas the Gray dropped out. He's probably going to go to the Pennsylvania Derby. But other than that, you had everyone that you wanted to be in the race, plus the filly, plus Torpedo Anna, which spiced up the race to a degree that I can't remember in Travers in the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And then when they get out on the racetrack, it's a terrific race with Fierceness. Remember him beating Torpedo Anna by a slim margin. And it was, again, the type of race where you felt as good about it going in as you did going out. And I think Torpedo Anna lost absolutely nothing in defeat. Matter of fact, I would say she probably enhanced her reputation by running second to a very fast Fierceness.
It was one of those races where Mike Repole and Kenny McPeak in the winner's circle were both laughing and smiling and slapping each other on the back. It was one of those races that everybody could feel good about. Even Sierra Leone, the third place finisher, ran a heck of a race, ran the best race of his career in defeat. I thought Fierceness ran the very best race he's ever run, and that's saying a lot because his Florida Derby was absolutely dominating. But I thought he showed a new dimension in the Travers Stakes. If you had told me that going around the clubhouse turn, Fierceness would be fourth and he'd be 3 lengths off the pace, I probably would have lined up to bet against him. I would have thought that he would have preferred to be a little bit more in the mix. But Johnny Velasquez learned something about him in the Jim Dandy, that he could sit just a little bit off the pace. As long as he wasn't being hustled, he relaxed beautifully and was a little bit, I think maybe 3 horses wide on both turns, and still ran a 1:11 Buyer's speed figure that kind of says it all, because his narrow win meant that Torpedo Anna also ran a 1:11 Buyer's speed figure. We talked last week about how the speed figures of Torpedo Anna, you weren't really indicative of her ability, just because of how dominant she had been and how quick some of those internal moves had been against 3-year-old fillies. And we've been waiting for so long for Sierra Leone to live up to his potential, to finally run a straight line, to finally put it all together. He got his 1.25 miles. He didn't get that much of a pace, but he ran fairly straight, ran a lot more mature, a lot more professionally down the lane. And he runs a 1:09 Buyer, finishing third. That was a killer trio coming down to the wire in the Travers. And I agree with you. I mean, it's not all that often that a race that hyped lives up to its potential that dramatically. But I thought the Travers really did.
A couple observations. I mean, the betting public kind of gave up on Fierceness. He was 390 to 1. And watching the Fox show, you almost didn't, and this isn't a knock on Fox, I don't want to go there, but you almost didn't even know he was in the race.
It was all about Torpedo Anna.
Yeah. Of course. But I mean, that's what I'm sure if NBC did the race, they would do the same thing, because that was the big story. But she so overshadowed everyone, including Fierceness, who we know, as erratic as he is capable of putting in a performance like the one he did. Now, this is a question I probably should not ask until after the Breeders' Cup. But Randy, if they ended the year today, who's horse of the year?
That's tough. That's tough. I would probably go Torpedo Anna, honestly. And if she, right now the plan is to keep her against females the rest of the year, to run her in the cotillion at Parks, for 3-year-old fillies, and then to run her in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. And if she wins both of those races and something, different other than Fierceness, let's say, happens in the Breeders' Cup Classic, then I think Torpedo Anna would be a really solid choice, the way I'm looking at it now, for Horse of the Year. Another thing about the Travers that I thought kind of flew under the radar a little bit, Johnny Velasquez mentioned just sort of casually in the post-race interview about how he moved Fierceness a little earlier than he wanted to. Okay. At about the half-mile pole is when he very first started to make a little bit of a move with Fierceness. And the reason he did that was to lock Torpedo Anna down on the inside behind the speed and not let her swing out and get the jump on him. Mm-hmm. Right? And it was a strategy that worked to perfection because Brian Hernandez had to sit patiently, had to wait for Fierceness to make his move first, go past 3 wide, take the lead, then swing out, follow Fierceness into the stretch, and hope that she could run him down. Nine times out of 10, when a 3-year-old filly can run a buyer speed figure of 111, she's going to run down whoever is in front of her. But Fierceness just ran exceptionally and made that strategy pay off.
How about Dornoch? Did you see any excuses for him, or did he just get outrun?
But he ran his race.
Yeah. Okay.
Numbers wise, he ran the same he'd been running. I know Danny Gargan says he felt he was a little flat and that maybe some of those tough wins that we had seen him have in the Belmont and the Haskell might have taken a little bit of wind out of his sails. But I thought he ran his race, and they just got a lot faster in front of him, in my opinion.
One other story that came out about this, and I'm saying this as I'm an anti-whip guy, have been for a long time. But then we see that Brian Hernandez, aboard Torpedo Anna, was given a 1-day suspension and a $1,250 fine for excessive whipping of the horse. That is, he went over the maximum is 6. He went 7. So he gets, that's why the suspension is only 1 day and the fine is fairly moderate. But this is one of my complaints about this whole system that they've come up with. You're riding for $1.5 million in the biggest race, one of the biggest races of your life, and you're 3 jumps from the wire. You're really going to start thinking, did I hit the horse 6 times or 7 times? I better be careful. No, you're going to use the crop. And I understand why they would do that. I think when it gets, I don't know, I don't have no idea what the solution is to this, but it would be ridiculous for the guy to put his stick away if he thought that could cost him the race. Fine him $10,000, fine him $20,000. He wouldn't care. Brian Hernandez wanted to win that race, and he wanted to get, the big payday for himself as a jockey. Who could blame him?
Irad Ortiz, I think, also got a 1-day suspension for not in that particular race, but I think for another race this past week for going over the 6-stroke limit with the whip. You got to set a limit somewhere, but I agree with you that if you're talking about a race like the Travers and you're coming down on the wire and you think that it might help you win, you'll take your day, you'll take your fine, and you'll just go on with it.
Yeah, you might not do that for the 4th at Finger Lakes, but for the Travers, I couldn't blame them for doing that. Randy, I think we're now talking about a pretty good group of 3-year-olds. Now that they've all sort of sorted themselves out with Fierceness now, we won't forget all the erratic races and his erratic nature, but he's run 2 straight very good races. And you said that the Travers was the best race of his life. I would think this running good one day, bad the next might be behind him now. Maybe just maturity, or maybe Pletcher's figured something out. But this, he put away the knock against him that he couldn't run 2 good races in a row. You was all said on the podcast many times that's silly. There's no reason why a horse wouldn't be able to run 2 good races in a row. It has to be something else. But can we get past that now
I think we can, and I'm sure Mike Repole will talk about that when we have him on as the guest of the week here shortly. John Velasquez has an interesting theory about, I think we might have talked about this earlier, I don't remember if we did or not, about why Fierceness threw in a couple of those head-scratching races, right? The only thing that Johnny could figure out there was a similarity between the two is that not only was he just a little bit compromised at the start, right? Not a lot, but a little bit. But Johnny hustled him at that point to try to get him back up into the race. And he believes that the horse doesn't want to be hustled. He wants to be left alone. He wants to be allowed just to do his thing. Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me where to go, how to do it. And that's exactly the way Johnny rode him in the Travers. He just put his hands down. He let the horse get into the stride he wanted. He was fourth by 3 lengths. That's what the horse wanted to do. Fine with Johnny. And he showed that, I don't know if that's the answer. Don't know if that's why he ran some of those races, but I think, my opinion, I think we can put that behind us. Now, the pace was also pretty slow in the Travers, and that probably worked against a horse like Sierra Leone. So I know what Chad Brown is hoping is, as he trains up to the Breeders' Cup Classic, along with Fierceness and along with Dornoch, that he'll get a lot more pace at Del Mar in the Classic, and that might maybe help Sierra Leone turn the tables.
We shall see. He's the same horse every time, where he runs very good, but just not quite good enough. The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Keeneland. Keeneland is currently holding a flash sale offering the dam and half-sister to Black Forza, the recent winner of the Group 2 Richmond Stakes at Goodwood. Black Forza is heading next to the $1 million Kentucky Downs Juvenile Sprint on September 1. Sale is currently open for bids at www.keeneland.com/AugustFlash. Sale concludes this Thursday, August 29th at 3 p.m. We'll be right back after this message from Keeneland.
At Keeneland, a horse will always be measured in hands. Hands that see, that sense, that speak. Hands that hold our sport to a higher standard. Not for our sake, but for theirs. For the love of the horse, for generations to come.
We are very proud to say that the TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Stone Street, bred and raised. Stone Street is offering 14 horses at Keeneland's September's Book 1. Let's take a look at a few of these that we've specially selected just for you. This is hip 318, a filly by Curlin out of Authenticity. Now, if Authenticity sounds familiar, she was a multiple graded stakes winner who also produced Charlatan. Multiple grade 1 stakes winner himself, and now a stallion at Hill and Dale. This is hip 278, a colt by Tappet out of Valladorna, a graded stakes winner and a grade 1 stakes placed horse on the racetrack. Valladorna also happens to be a half-sister to Complexity, the leading first crop sire. And how about this one? Hip 345, a colt by Into Mischief out of Catch the Moon, who has produced, among other black type runners, Gervin, the Haskell winner, and also Midnight Bourbon, stakes winner and multiple grade 1 stakes placed runner. That's some beautiful speed indeed from Stone Street, bred and raised. And now it's time for the fastest horse of the week, brought to you this week by Independence Hall, one of those fast sires at Windstar Farm. Independence Hall, the fastest 2-year-old of his particular crop. He ran a 101 buyer in his stake record-setting win in the Nashua Stakes. That's a grade 3. That was the best of any 2-year-old that season. He was a gate-to-wire winner of the Fayette Stakes at Keeneland, won that by 7 with a 105 buyer. And not only that, in retirement, his first yearlings are hot. They're averaging over 10 times his stud fee. In fact, you can see 56 of Independence Hall's first yearlings at Keeneland September, beginning on September 9th. Now, the fastest horse of the week, we've already talked about him in detail. No surprise, Fierceness with his 111 and the Travers Stakes to go along with the 110 that he ran earlier this year when he romped home in the Florida Derby.
As always, our Guest of the Week segment on the TDN Writers Room is brought to you by the Green Group, a tax consulting and advisory firm that specializes in the thoroughbred industry. Welcome in now our Green Group Guest of the Week. And you know this fella because he wins an awful lot of races and is found in the winner's circle an awful lot of times. That's Mike Repole, the owner of, among others, Fierceness, who won the Travers Stakes. Mike, welcome to the show and thanks for joining us. You have had so much success in your career in racing, but 97% of those horses were horses you bought at sales. How did it feel different that a homebred won? And is that then, are you a little bit more proud of this accomplishment than maybe the one that wins that you went out and spent $1 million for at Keeneland?
Well, Bill, I hope you okay if I say hello to Randy first because he's also on. Randy, how you doing? Bill, how are you? So yeah, I mean, Bill, it's first of all, winning the Travers is probably top 5 race for anybody that is in this racing game. And, I've done it in 2011 with Stay Thirsty and now again this weekend. I'm still on cloud 9. As far as it being a homebred versus a yearling purchase or a 2-year-old purchase, there was a lot of reflection prior to the race and a little reflection post-race. Nona Mia was a horse that I bought, one of my first horses I bought in a sale in 2007 for like $200,000. She's named after my grandmother, my grandmother in Italian. And I bred her, I bred Nona Mia to Stay Thirsty. And I got this filly called Nona Bella, and what's your beautiful grandmother. So you're talking about the first stage being 2007. Stay Thirsty was a 2008. Nona Bella probably was a 2014. And now to come here and breed Nona Bella to City of Light, which I have a 10% stake. I mean, this is, 17, 18 years in the creation or making of Fierceness. So when you start to think about starting the game, when first starts in 2004 and 2005, probably didn't win a race till 2006. And now you fast forward 20 years and there's, not only do you own the mare, you own the grand mare, and you race them both. And Stay Thirsty when you're her first Travers, and he's the grandsire. A kind of big reflection of being in my early 30s to now mid 50s, and my grandmother being around for the races. And I told my daughter Joya, she asked me if on Friday, Dad, did we ever win the Travers? And I said, no, I won the Travers in 2011, but you weren't here, so you haven't won the Travers. So I got 2, she's got 1, and it feels great. I mean, it really does have a lot more meaning, over the last week, Bill and Randy, than I kind of really thought about it, say 6 months ago.
So given that emotional involvement, more so with this particular horse, how difficult was it for you, all the slings and arrows that Fierceness took after the Kentucky Derby, and even the skepticism? I mean, he was almost, he was 7-2 or something like that in the Travers. The skepticism that he'd be able to put 2 races together back to back the way he did. How tough was that for you to listen to all that?
Randy, listen, as far as tough, very tough, but, I pride myself on, I bought a sneaker company, apparel company called No Bull. What that stands for. And it's about mental toughness and a tough mentality. So, listen, life is about adversity and life is about ups and downs. I mean, I scratched 2 Derby favorites. I don't know what can be tougher than Uncle Mo or Forte, winning and losing a race. I mean, that happens every single day. But this horse probably was more baffling for Todd. Todd has never had a horse this talented one race, and then all of a sudden you go from a 110 buyer to an 80 buyer, and it's an every other start thing. So, listen, I mean, you and Bill have been around this game a long time, and we know there's a lot more lows than there are highs. So anytime you're having a high in this game, it's hard to feel bad about having lows. But, I really feel great for Todd, who really put a lot of effort into every horse, and he's been around for over 25 years. But this horse in particular, I joked with him the other day, he's going to go down in history as the trainer who got Fierceness beat 3 times. That's going to be his legacy. So, he did an amazing job, and the horse ran super.
I was a little worried about you after the race when the Fox camera showed the box, and I didn't see you. You were like collapsed back into a chair. But
You know what? At the quarter pole, I thought we were going to win by 3. At the 8th pole, I thought we were going to win by 2.5. At the 16th pole, I thought we were going to win by 1.5. At the 132nd pole, I thought we were going to lose by a length. So it seems like once, I mean, to Peter Anna, let's just give her all the praise out there possible. I mean, Philly against boys. This was Zenyatta Blame. When Uncle Mo won his 2-year-old juvenile, that was the Blame Zenyatta year. And to watch Blame and Zenyatta, Blame Zenyatta, it gave me a little bit of a feeling of 2010 with these two. What a great filly, 3-year-old colt, 3-year-old filly, champions. It was an unbelievable race. But honestly, there was a time I really thought Peter Anna had him. And I think Fierceness dug in just a little bit more right before the wire and said, you're not going to get by me. And it was, for a race to have all the hype that this has had, and people were talking, it really is why we love the sport so much. I mean, it lived up to the hype, man. It was special.
Mike, and I'm glad you brought that up about Torpedo Anna, because I know you love the history of the game and you're a sportsman. She almost beat you on a day where your horse ran the race of his life. And I saw you and Kenny McPeak both of you were all smiles after the race. I can't blame Kenny for being happy with a loss because she ran so well. What did you say to one another, and what impressions did you come away with her?
I've been in that position, and to be as, to take a loss like that as well as Kenny and Team Torpedo Anna took it. I congratulated them, but in a way I feel it's uncomfortable to say, hey, we won, congratulations. And hey, you ran a great race. And, the biggest compliment I could give him, I said to him, please keep this filly with the girls. I don't want to do this again. Please, that's the biggest compliment I can give him, is I don't want to face her anymore. I mean, she ran an amazing race. I mean, I've tried Nest in the Belmont, ran second to Mo Donegal. That second I didn't take too hard because I also own Mo Donegal, so it wasn't that bad. But I've watched Todd with Rags to Riches before this. It's done once in a while, and applaud the connections for taking a chance. And she did nothing but, she could have won the Alabama by 7, and she was second by a head to 2-year-old champ and possibly 3-year-old champ.
And now it's, if all goes well, it's in Todd You Trust to map out a plan going forward. And I guess that plan is to train him up to the Breeders' Cup Classic. Is that kind of set in stone?
Yeah. Randy, if you would have asked us after the Jim Dandy, we were telling you that he won't race until the Pennsylvania Derby. So that lasted for 12 hours. But this one, we're sure. He's probably not going to work for probably 6 weeks before the Classic. He'll get some time off. Came out of the race great. That was a big surprise for Todd. Fierceness took the Derby, probably lost 75 to 100 pounds. Wasn't himself for about 2 or 3 weeks. Just needed to, have that mid-year, rest. And I think, everybody knows me as only aggressive. I have a term out there, patiently aggressive. And, I knew we couldn't run him in the Preakness and not even the Belmont. So we gave him time, and Todd did what he had to do, and Fierceness just responded. And, I really believe we have a horse that's, I really believe this is the best race he's ever run in his career. And I really believe there's a chance that his next one might be even better.
Mike, if we're talking about this race next year at this time, maybe we're talking about Menti winning the Travers. That, of course, is the full brother to Fierceness, ran the one time at Saratoga, and we haven't seen him since. What's the update on him?
He's worked the last 2 weeks incredibly. He had a fever, and when he got his fever, it was from a puncture wound, and it wound up that Todd caught this early. He had acute laminitis, and he was away for about 10 days. And Todd did, thank God Todd and the doctors got him there quickly. Danielle Bricker, who's on my team, she went to visit him 3 times a day, and it got a little nerve-wracking, and that this horse rebounded really incredibly well to come back and work 3 times. I mean, this is the behind-the-scenes story that a lot of people don't see, and they say, oh, sometimes you're going to retire a horse too early, or come on, just do it for the fans. But they don't understand the stress and anxiety that Todd Pletcher or my team, or even I, wake up to every day with. All right, I would ask Todd, I'd wake up and ask Todd how Fierceness was before I would check on Joya and Maria. And no disrespect to my wife and Maria, they'd be sleeping, so they were okay. Me and Fierceness weren't. So there is a lot of that stress that goes in between. And, when you care as much as we do and most owners and trainers do about the horses, they're family. And, there's you feel the pressure for them, to perform, this happens. Like, this is a tough part of the game that people don't see or don't understand. And you know what? We're lucky he's alive, because this could have went one way or the other. That's what Lemonitis does. And for him to rebound like this, we feel great. And he was up at Saratoga, spent 10 days in the clinic, got back, galloped for 2 weeks. And, and shout out to Danielle, who is amazing. And she slept with the horse in his stall for a couple weeks. So maybe that helped a little bit. Wow. Getting him back to, where he is today.
Maybe this will be another Lady Eli story. That's really something.
Yeah.
So the last time we had you on the podcast, we not only talked about Fierceness and about your horses, we talked about your new initiative, the National Thoroughbred Association. Give us an update. We haven't read much about it lately. What's percolating with you?
It's probably 9 months in right now, maybe 10. Pat Cummings is in Japan right now for an event out there. And, I've learned a lot, Bill and Randy, about this game. I've dug in as deep as I can on, not only the ownership side, but the track side, the ABC committees that we have out there, stallions, the sales end, thoroughbred aftercare, the 2-year-old sales. And, Bill and I speak once in a while, just like me and you, Randy. And, although I asked Bill honestly what he thought, he was rooting for me, but he thought there's a low percent chance that I can make a difference. And he said it was nothing against me. It's just the way the industry is formed and shaped. But yeah. I think we're making a lot more progress than people think. First of all, there's more talk over the last 10 months than there's ever been. Many people agree with what I'm saying. The only negative feedback I get is they don't like the style. And you know what? Other styles haven't worked for 40 years. If you can show me a style that works, where you just come in and you hold hands and you sing Kumbaya, and I'll do it. That was my first option. But this is a game where 90% of the people want changes, but not the 10% that they do. Please, let's start with the other 90%. And it's become pretty selfish. And I have to look myself in the mirror. If I want to be in this game 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years from now, I have to feel good about the sport that I'm in. And right now, I don't feel good about things like horse aftercare. I don't feel good about 2-year-old sales. I don't feel good about how the sport is undermined by people inside our industry. I don't feel good about the committees that are making the calls. And I don't feel good about the selfishness. So, listen, as much as I love winning races, I've been in the game for 20 years. To me, it's more important over the next 5 years that I have a lead role in helping change the game for the better, for not the next 5 months, but the next 5 to 25 years. And I really believe I'd rather do that than win a third Travers. And the first initiative that Pat and I are taking on, which you would have thought was a simple one to conquer, was horse aftercare. Oh, come on, everyone loves aftercare, of course. When I dig in and see that the TAA, it's been around for 10 years, only raises $3.5 million a year, and that most of these agencies and horse rescue and aftercare facilities have to beg and plead, for money. And all these millions are being traded back and forth at the sales, races, $10 million race, $6 million race, $20 million race Dubai. And we can't, the day that horse is born, doesn't matter if it changes hands once or 20 times in its career. We have to know that that horse is taken care of for the next 25 years of its life. And until somebody puts a system and process in place, and honestly, the things that I'm asking for, Bill and Randy, are really about little breakage, 0.0025% if you buy or sell a horse at an auction, which would raise $9 million, okay? So if you buy a horse for $100,000, you pay $250. If you sell a horse for $100,000, you pay $250. And then the sales center chips in 0.001, which is $100. So you're talking about $600,000 on every $100,000 transaction. On $1 million transaction, it's $6,000. And I still haven't had Fazig sign on. I still don't have Keeneland sign on, and I still don't have OBS. I'm not saying that Boyd and Shannon are not going to do this, because I'm initiating this on January 1st. I'm going to say this, and this is where people don't like me at times. With or without him, this is going to happen. The stallion farms, Uncle Mo gets bred 200 times. We have to donate one breeding of Uncle Mo a year for over 100 breedings. So that's 150,000. Justify 300, into Mischief 250. Stallion farm, that would come out to another $4 million. That's $10 million just in stallion fees, 1 out of 200. Randy, let's do the math. 200 times 150,000, that's 30 million. I think 150,000 is okay, right? So we can't do this anymore. And that nobody, and this is where I've been brutally tough and deservingly on the Jockey Club. You're here to make the game better and move it forward. These are simple initiatives. If we can't do it aftercare, you know what? Then this game has no chance. And you know what? It's unfortunate, but I feel like I have to almost force change. And I hope that doesn't sound arrogant or cocky, but listen, if we care about this game 5 to 25 years from now, someone's going to have to be the bad guy or the disruptor. And you know what? If someone has to be the asshole, sign me up. I'm actually pretty good at it. I can actually play asshole very well, and I'll enjoy doing it. So that's it. And I feel that's my focus right now. For 18 to 40-year-old, I'm 55. I fell in love with this game when I was 13, 14 years old. Is it going to be around for the 15-year-old? Is it going to be around for the 25-year-old, the 35-year-old? I got a lot of concerns. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Well, Mike, we wish you well with that, because it's a very important project. I actually want to go back to one more Fierceness question before I turn it back over to Randy. But this goes back into some of the things you've said about the sport and what's good for the game. Are you any chance you're going to buck the trend and run him as a 4-year-old? I
would love to run him as a 4-year-old. Love. So we all know it's about, let's see what he does in the Breeders' Cup. Let's see what he does in the Pegasus. But I can tell you right now that if he performs the way I think he's going to perform in the Breeders' Cup and things go well, you just heard what happened with Menti and things do happen. I would love to bring him back at 4. I've never been afraid. Forte had some issues. He was a Derby scratch. After the Travers, we had there were reasons for that. Forte had a full 2-year-old season and basically a full 3-year-old season. And he was champion 2-year-old. Fierceness has done the same thing. His break was a little bit different. It was more about loss of weight. He just needed to grow up a little bit, mature. I tried to bring Ness back. Instead of breeding her in January,
you did.
I didn't breed her till May. Right. Because I tried to bring her back. Like I brought Bright Future back at 5. He won the Jockey Gold Cup, grade 1. I'm trying. In a game where obviously, and Bill and Randy, you know this, if these horses aren't 100% sound, no one's going to take a chance and run them, and they shouldn't, or HISA or the vets are going to stop running them, which we totally understand. But that's also a reason why you have to think about, hey, you know what? We can't race this horse. He needs 60 days off, 60 days to gallop, 60 days to train, and all of a sudden it's 6 months. So those are the things that we have to watch. And, I want to grow the game. I want to grow the sport. The other thing is, let's start thinking of a program where the older horse division races are, let's make the Whitney $3 million. Let's make the Classic. Let's make that $10 million. Let's make let's make the Pegasus $5 million. Let's make these older horse divisions bigger purses, because it will give us an incentive to come back and run. The other thing is very important is that is the insurance to keep a horse running that's worth 10, 20, or $30 million is 3 to 4%. If you guys want to do 4% of 20 million, it's $1 million. I mean, it's a lot of money. And then all of a sudden you're running for purses for 500,000. Like it doesn't make sense. So just the insurance. And the other side is, you saw what happened to Saratoga the last 2 years. To have a horse like this, this is your child out there running. You have your heart in your mouth, and you're like so nervous, and you just want to see him get by the wire. Like there's that aspect of it. Like every time you put him out there, you never know, and that's scary. So there's a lot of emotions. There's not just that financial emotion. There's that emotional component, that worry part, that anxiety, that stress that a lot of people don't see. So I want, when I try to fix this game, it's got to make mental sense, emotional sense, physical strength, and financial sense. Like someone has to sit there and say, make these 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds want to come back to the track. Make it where it makes sense.
Well, we want to thank Mike Repole so much for joining us here as the Green Group Guest of the Week on the Thoroughbred Daily News Writers Room podcast. Congratulations, Mark, on a brilliant win by Fierceness in what is absolutely the race of the year so far. Well done, and we'll see Fierceness in the Breeders' Cup.
Thank you, guys.
As the Green Group Guest of the Week, Mike Repole will receive a free 1-hour tax consultation with the Green Group, where they will almost surely be able to save him money on his taxes. To find out how the Green Group can help you, go visit them at www.greenco.com.
When it comes to the horse industry, tax laws are complicated and unique. That is why most people overpay on their taxes. Why not get a second opinion from the top-rated accounting and tax firm in the thoroughbred industry? With over 800 clients in the horse business alone, the Green Group has the expertise to save you taxes. There is a reason the most successful owners, breeders, trainers, vets, and horsemen use the Green Group as their tax advisors. We save you taxes. Over the past 40 years, the Green Group founder, Len Green, has owned and bred some of the best racehorses in the history of the sport. His DJ stable competes at the highest level and has received the game's most prestigious honors. Len Green's in-depth, hands-on industry knowledge, combined with current-edge tax-saving strategies, produces positive tax-saving results for clients. Take advantage of this special offer. The Green Group will give you a complimentary and confidential review of your tax return. Contact us at 732-634-5100 or visit our website at www.greenco.com.
This week, the TDN Writers Room also brought to you by Macaulay Feeds. Passionate equestrians and sport horse enthusiasts alike can unleash the power of Macaulay's, an oat-based horse feed specially designed for sport horses. Macaulay's can fuel your horse's performance and support their peak athletic condition through its nutrient-rich oats and its 100% organic trace materials for unbeatable strength, stamina, and recovery. Choose Macaulay's and take your sport horse's performance to new heights. Visit their website today and discover the true potential within your equine athlete. Macaulay's, proud to be the feed of champions, now for 86 years running.
Well, it just wasn't the Travers on Saturday at Saratoga. There were 4 other Grade 1 races on a spectacular card. And why don't we go through them briefly? The Sword Dancer was the first of the 4, and my head wanted to explode, but I should be used to this at this point. Farbridge Randy, if I told you beforehand that Farbridge was going to win this race wire to wire, you would have just, you would have called for the men in the white coats. That's impossible. Horse had never been anywhere near the lead in any time in his life. The 2 Charlie Appleby horses were the only 2 horses that had any early speed in the race. It was just a matter of what William Buick and Flavian Pratt were going to do, who was going to try to get the lead over the other one. They both fell asleep. The fractions 24-4, 50-4, 117-1, a brilliant ride by Rosario got the job done. But, you see this so many times in New York and they just can't figure it out. I mean, you're talking about William Buick and Flavian Pratt. You're probably talking about 2 of maybe the 5 best jockeys in the world. Mm-hmm. And they both get an F from me for their ride in the Sword Dancer.
Me too. I cannot figure it out. A couple of horses that are very capable and did, run 3/4 of a mile, the first 3/4 of a mile in their recent races in 1:11 and change. And now they're sitting off the pace in 1:17-1 and allowing Farbridge just literally lope along and expend zero energy. The only thing I can figure out, Bill, is just overconfidence. Mm-hmm. On the part of both riders. I mean, those 2 horses looked like they were absolute standouts. Farbridge hadn't been able to run at that level against those types of horses before. And I think they felt like it was going to be a match race between those 2. And, Silver Knot would be closer. Measure Time would be right behind him. When they turn for home, the race would be on. We'll see who's the best. And I think, for lack of a better term, I think they got a little cocky.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it for sure. Another factor in the race, only 5 horses in the Sword Dancer, 750,000 Grade 1 race. And Zoe has talked about this. I think she talked about this some last week. We're really starting to see now how much Kentucky Downs is affecting other races that surround it. As much as $750,000 is a lot of money. That would be for what they run maiden claimers for, it would seem, at Kentucky Downs. They have a $2 million race going a mile and a half for the exact same horses. I'm sure they'll get 14 horses in there. And if that race didn't exist, I think the Sword Dancer probably would have had 8 or 9 horses instead of 5. This, no one to point the finger of blame at. Kentucky Downs is doing a great job. They got the money. They're going to spend it. But, when even the New York Racing Association can't compete with Kentucky Downs, for horses, that tells you, and New York Racing Association in Saratoga cannot compete for horses. That tells you the strength of the program at Kentucky Downs and what's going on there now.
Yeah, totally agree. And one more quick note on the Sword Dancer. Let's give a little credit to Farbridge. He's a nice horse, right? He was beaten 2 1/4 lengths by Measured Time in the Manhattan from off the pace. So if you give him that kind of a pace advantage, he's a nice enough horse to be able to capitalize on it, and he did. So, he's a horse that you and I would love dearly to own. Yes. Congratulations to Farbridge. A deserving winner, given the way the race was run.
Of course, yeah, I totally agree with you on that. All right, the Ballerina for older fillies and mares sprinting. Society had been a little bit like Fierceness, very erratic horse. Sometimes she shows up and just runs a terrific race. Sometimes she shows up and barely runs at all. She hadn't won a Grade 1 since the 2022 Cotillion at Parks, and that was some fabulous effort. Randy, she got a figure off the charts for that race, didn't she? Do you remember off the top of your head?
It was like she has, Society has run, going into the Ballerina, had run 4 triple-digit buyer speed figures, okay? But they were all against yes, the Cotillion was a Grade 1, but you look at who she beat, and it wasn't, your normal Grade 1 lineup. So it's very easy to say that Society was one of these types of mares that beats up on inferior competition. And then when she gets in the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Sprint or the La Troyenne or the Madison or the Breeders' Cup Distaff or, a long list of Grade 1 type races in which she's failed in, she just can't cut it. This was a triumph of speed figures over class handicapping because I thought that society, I respected her, but I didn't think she could beat Vava. I didn't think she was good enough to beat Vava. And she ran back to those triple-digit buyers with a 102 in the ballerina, and she did it against top-level competition.
Another Grade 1 stakes race Saturday at Saratoga was the Forgo. Really didn't come up a very tough race, especially for a Grade 1. It was won by Mulliken. Is it Milliken, maybe is how you pronounce it? He's been very good this year, 4 straight wins in a division that really doesn't have a clear leader, especially with the Chosen Vron getting beat out in California over the weekend. Maybe he is going to be the one to step up. And it was a milestone, Randy, for the trainer too, right?
Yeah, Rudy Brissett, his very first Grade 1 win. So congratulations to Rudy. And this horse, obviously, Mulliken is on the short list of leading contenders for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. But if there's one thing we've learned over the decades in the Breeders' Cup, it's that a lot of times you have to take the results of Grade 1 7-furlong stakes races in New York a little bit less seriously when you go to California and now you're competing against Southern California 6-furlong speed. That's been the undoing of a lot of top New York horses going out there and having to butt heads with speedsters like that. So that's the one caution that I would give about Mulliken and his very impressive win streak right now.
Another race that lived up to the hype was the H. Allen Jerkins Memorial for 3-year-old sprinters. Very good race. Comes down to the wire. Domestic Product wins over Prince of Monaco. My guy, Buccadano, ran a terrific race to finish third. Wish he could have won, but he certainly didn't lose anything in defeat. And, what was interesting? I being able to watch Chad Brown after the race, I have never seen him so happy after winning a race, even like winning the Preakness or a Breeders' Cup race. There was something, I guess, that he took a lot of pride in this horse, probably because he won Domestic Product's sire. Practical Joke also won the race in 2017. And then Domestic Product comes out and tries to make him into a Derby horse, runs in the Tampa Bay Derby, does no good in the Kentucky Derby. Now that they found out what he wants to do, he wants to sprint. And even though he's a 3-year-old, that shouldn't keep him back from having a good run in the Breeders' Cup Sprint.
And if people didn't see it, go back and watch Flavian Pratt's reaction when he crossed the finish line. You thought he just swept the Triple Crown. Because he was vindicated. I mean, he had his choice, I think, of 4 different horses in this race, including Prince of Monaco, the runner-up, who he had been riding, and he chose Domestic Product, who was 9-2. He wasn't even the favorite. And Domestic Product gets up to win. Everything we said about the Travers to a lesser extent, but very similarly, would apply to the Allen Jerkins. 3-year-old race. Big number. Domestic Product gets a career best 106 buyer. Prince of Monaco runs the best race of his career, gets off to a better start this time, and just loses by a neck. And Book of Dano runs the race of his life, just like Sierra Leone, and finishes third. What a race the Allen Jerkins turned out to be as well.
The big race in California, as I mentioned earlier, was the Pat O'Brien. And it was a neat race on paper. One of Randy's favorite horses, Senior Buscador, was coming back in this. A horse that everybody loves, the Chosen Vron, was the favorite. Senior Buscador, the trainer, Todd Fincher, made it clear before the race that this was his stepping stone to get the horse ready for the California Classic, the old Awesome Again Stakes, and then for the Breeders' Cup Classic. But the Chosen Vron, his 6-race winning streak was snapped by the 3-year-old Raging Torrent. No excuses for Chosen Vron. He actually got in front of this horse at the top of the stretch, and the Doug O'Neill horse dug back in. So here's another horse thrown in the mix in a very wide open sprint division. But I was kind of sad to see Senior Busco, see Chosen Vron get beat. He's such a cool horse, but he'll bounce back, and I'm sure he will account well for himself in the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, and they can hold their head up high because in defeat, he still ran one hell of a race. In the aftermath of that amazing 3-horse photo finish in the Kentucky Derby, a lot of people weren't paying attention to, I believe it was the very next race. If it wasn't, it was 2 races later when Raging Torrent won an allowance race, a 7-furlong allowance race at Churchill Downs by 8 lengths with a buyer figure of 104. And one of the horses he beat in there, finishing third, was Jefferson Street, who came back to run really well. Then he comes back in his next start at Churchill. He beats a horse named World Record, who came back later and won a stakes race at Saratoga. So Raging Torrent had a lot of recent ones by his name and a lot of big numbers, and he lived up to his speed figures with another 104 in the Pat O'Brien. The TDN Writers Room, brought to you by our friends at the Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association, the PHBA. We've been talking about it for a while. This past Monday was the annual PA Bred Day at the races, a full day of racing for Pennsylvania breds with total purses worth $1 million. The day showcased 4 $100,000 stakes races for PA bred horses, along with an elite undercard of other PA breds. And speaking of $1 million, Morning Matcha became racing's newest millionaire when she won the $100,000 Mrs. Penny Stakes. Congratulations to all the winners at Pennsylvania's Day at the Races. And earlier this week, PA bred Late Frost won the Shine Again Stakes at Timonium to bring her earnings to just under $350,000. We'll be right back after this message from the PHBA.
The PA Horse Breeders Association presents the new and improved Pennsylvania Stallion Series. 6 $100,000 stakes for PA sired PA breds and parks. 2 6-furlong contests on PA Derby Day. The 2-year-olds then go 7 furlongs on December 30th. The last 2 races are in August 2025 for 3-year-olds. Then $50,000 in breeder bonuses go to the top 3 horses in the series. For more, go to pabred.com.
With some of the fullest fields in the country and quality racing year-round, there's never been a better time to reap the rewards of breeding and racing in Kentucky. Purse money in Kentucky is at an all-time high, as is average purse per race, outpacing California, Florida, and New York. Kentucky breds. Breed them, raise them, race them. We all win.
The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Kentucky Breds. And boy, there's a lot to choose from there. How about this one? City of Troy. Yes, he is a Kentucky bred. That shouldn't shock anybody. And he just won emphatically in York's Juddmonte International this past week, going wire to wire. You don't see that all that often in those major European stakes races. That's a win and you're in race also for the Breeders' Cup Classic. And in that race, City of Troy established a course record. Also last week, the Kentucky Breds continued their success at Saratoga when all 6 Grade 1 races last weekend at Saratoga were won by Kentucky Breds, including, of course, the Travers Stakes. You can find your next Kentucky Bred star at the Keeneland September yearling sale running September 9th through the 21st. Breed them, raise them, race them. We all win.
Well, let's talk about what's going on this weekend, and it's going to be a very interesting week of racing. Matter of fact, now we also have to say this: the Saratoga entries are already out, so are the Kentucky Downs entries are out, but the entries for the Pacific Classic are not out yet. And I'm sorry, the Jockey Club Gold Cup will be run Sunday at Saratoga. Those entries aren't out yet either, so it's a little bit of a guessing game, which we always feel uncomfortable with it. But I think the TDN tomorrow is going to have a story that a lot of people are going to be glad to read. Bob Baffert is going to run probably going to run Adair Manor in the Pacific Classic. And boy, does that spice that race up. Otherwise, on paper, it didn't look like much of a race. The same with the Jockey Club Gold Cup. It shows you how weak the older male division is, that Adair Manor will be a solid favorite in the Pacific Classic if she indeed goes. And I guess somebody was joking with him. He thinks he's turning into Kenny McPeak now, Bob Baffert. But it's a great move on his part because she's going to be... She's going to be 6-5 for $1 million. Why not? And you know, the prestige factor, the purse factor, et cetera, and also the sportsmanship factor. I really hope that he follows through on that. Otherwise, you have a couple horses in there that really aren't that, anything all that special. Full Serrano is coming in. It's an Argentinian bred horse John Sadler has. And the 1-2 finishers from the San Diego, Dr. Venkman and Katona are supposed to be in the race. Baffert apparently is going to run Reincarnate as well. But all eyes will be on Adair Manor if she runs, Randy.
Yeah, I think, look, on paper, I think she deserves to be the favorite. Numbers wise, she's the only horse in the race that's run a triple digit buyer, and she's done it twice. Now, there's quite a few horses in there that are very consistent 99s, like Dr. Vinkman, like Il Miracolo, 98s, whatever. But she looks like on paper that as long as the pace doesn't do her in, then I think she's probably the horse to beat. Adair Manor has always seemingly run her best races when she's been able to control the early pace. And there is other speed in here. You just pointed out Full Serrano, who comes off of a 1 mile race at Del Mar, in which he went fractions of 21-2 and 44-4 and held on to win wire to wire. So the thought that Adair Manor is going to be able to control the pace is probably not going to happen. To her credit, though, in her last start, she showed a little bit of a different approach in the Clement Hirsch. She set a little off the pace. She was outside on both turns, and she was able for the first time to really fire big when she didn't control the pace. So maybe that's the same scenario she'll get on Sunday.
The Kentucky Downs phenomenon. We're ready for another round of that. Thursday's entries are out. 148 horses entered in 11 races. Saturday, 165 horses entered in 11 races. You've heard the numbers before, but they're worth repeating. $37 million will be given away. If that were to be, it gets complicated because the non-Kentucky breds run for less money, but let's just pretend that everybody's a Kentucky bred because 95% of them will be for $37 million. 15 stakes races at the meet are worth $1 million or more. And then the Nashville Derby is coming up this Saturday at 1 mile and 5/16. They upped the purse of this thing to $3.1 million. And I'm thinking that 0.1 is not a coincidence because that surpasses the Pegasus World Cup and it makes it the richest race run in America other than Breeders' Cup or Triple Crown races. So it is the by 100,000 more. I mean, who comes up with a $3.1 million race? Why wouldn't it just be $3 million? So I think that's a little bit for bragging rights. But I mean, this place, I don't know how they do it. We talked to Ted Nicholson because, every year you think, well, what are they giving away? 37 million. How can they top that? And they're giving away 2 million in this race and 2 million in that race. And every single year they seem to get bigger and better. And it's one of the great success stories in American racing. I love it as a handicapper. I love it as a gambler, and I love it as a racing fan. The racing is just terrific.
And we've talked about how it's a European style course. Mm-hmm. It's a unicorn, really, as far as the United States racing is concerned. And it's drawing the attention of Europeans. I mean, the Nashville Derby has got a horse trained by Joseph O'Brien, a horse called Stromberg. It's got a horse trained by Andrew Balding, who has shipped a horse over from the UK as well. So, how about this for a pick three? All right. You've got the Nashville Derby at 3.1 million. Very next race, you got the Ladies Turf Sprint, 6.5 furlongs, only $1.5 million. And then you have the Kentucky Downs Ladies Turf Stakes, also $1.5 million. A pick three, $6.1 million in total purses. It's crazy money. Absolutely.
This weekend is closing weekend at Saratoga. The Spinaway will be the feature on Saturday. The main race over the weekend will be Sunday's Jockey Club Gold Cup. And again, this speaks to the lack of talent in this division because everybody and their brother retired last year as 3-year-olds. But Arthur's Ride I would think, would definitely be the horse to beat. Not only did he win the Whitney, but we were told on the podcast by the owner that Bill Mott had said he was using the Whitney as a prep for the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Who uses a grade 1 race as a prep? But that's why Bill Mott's in the Hall of Fame. He got the job done in there, and I would assume that Arthur's Ride will be one of the main contenders in there. Other horse that is interesting to me is Tapit Trice, horse who never quite lived up to his potential, but he's coming in off a good effort last time out, trained by Todd Pletcher, and he might show up and do something in there. And Mike Repole has bright future, the winner of last year's Jockey Club Gold Cup, coming back in there. So it's it's as a New Yorker who's been following East Coast New York racing since, like you, Randy, since I was 7, 8 years old, just like you did. It's sad to me to see races like the Jockey Club Gold Cup really fall on hard times. And, and Ira's not doing anything wrong. They're doing the best they can. They moved the race to Saratoga for that very reason. They thought they'd get a better race, and if they still ran it at the Belmont or Belmont at Aqueduct meet a little bit later. But Arthur's Ride's a cool horse, and he's awful good. So let's see what he does.
Yeah. I mean, in my weekly voting you probably do too, for the Breeders' Cup Classic poll, I've got Fierceness number 1, Arthur's Ride number 2, and I think I have Tempest Trice number 10. Okay. So, I'll be very interested in the outcome of the Jockey Club Gold Cup and see if Arthur's Ride can keep it going, because he looked awfully good in the Whitney.
Yeah, he sure did. Maybe you'll need to put Adair Manor in that top 10 next week. How about that?
I think it's going to be a one and done for Bob, even if she wins the Pacific Classic. I think he'll probably wind up running her in the distaff at Del Mar. That's just my opinion.
I'm going off track here, but I just thought of this. Adair Manor versus Torpedo Anna in the distaff.
How about that?
Wow. That is a wow moment. And I think Torpedo Anna would probably beat her, but we'll see if that comes to fruition on the racetrack. It's time for the XBTV Work of the Week, and this week that work is from Ways and Means. Ways and Means was the winner of the Grade 1 Test Stakes August 3rd at Saratoga. This was her second work back after that effort. She worked a half mile on 48.88 over the Oklahoma training track at Saratoga. Chad Brown says he has not yet selected a race for her. We'll be right back after this message from XBTV.
Be a smarter, better with XBTV. The best horses. With thousands of exclusive morning workouts. All at your fingertips and delivered right into your inbox. Everything you need to be informed. Be smart. Bet smart with XBTV.
All the thrills. Fraction of the bills. Experience the power of the partnership. Change your life, make new friends, and compete at the highest level of thoroughbred racing. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. Visit westpointtb.com.
The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds. West Point Thoroughbreds has a prominent trio for the opening Saturday card at Kentucky Downs this weekend with Carson's Run and Cogino, both in line for the $3.1 million Nashville Derby, and Don't Look Back at All, bidding for her 4th straight win in the Grade 2 Ladies Turf. West Point wraps up the Saratoga meet with the Process making his stakes debut in Friday's Grade 3 Saranac, while Parnack will defend her title in the Grade 2 Flower Bowl Stakes on Saturday. To learn more, visit West Point Thoroughbreds at westpointtb.com. All right, so that's a wrap on this week's show. I want to thank Randy Moss. Zoe, we miss you. Come back next week, okay? I also want to thank Mike Repole, our Green Group Guest of the Week, and our producers, Katie Petruniak, Anthony LaRocca, and Alita LaRocca. Thanks for joining us on the TDN Writers Room podcast. We'll see you next week.